Now that the calendar's flipped to 2024, the Switch 2 speculation train has officially left the station, with some of the first big rumors coming out. And while those are interesting to look at, that's not the focus of this video here. Today, I want to talk about 5 Nintendo series that I want to see come back for the new upcoming system. As you could probably guess based on the usage of the word revived in the title, this is going to be talking about series that haven't had a new game in a bit, or series that have an uncertain future. Maybe a game got released back in like 2019 or earlier on the Switch, but it didn't review all that well, sold poorly, or both. So you're not going to be seeing me talk about Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, you get the picture. But before we talk about those series, I'm looking to make a good bit of Nintendo content this year, especially as we get closer and closer to possibly hearing about news of the new system. So if you're interested and enjoy the video, now's the part where you answer my begging and pleading by liking and subscribing. Let's get into it. I wanted to start with a series that I think could very easily be repurposed into a smart game, if they don't want to go through the effort of making a fully fledged $60 or $70 game. Whatever the pricing for Switch 2 games will be. And would serve as a perfect opportunity to test the waters for the series, so Nintendo can determine if there's enough demand for it to make a proper comeback in the future, or whether it will remain largely in the shadows, with maybe the occasional small thing. Think like what they did with F-Zero 99. For a series that could very well fit here, ever since it was released on SNES Online back in 2020, I've been a pretty big fan of Paneled Upon, or Tetris Attack, or Puzzle League, which is the name I'll be using for the rest of this segment to avoid confusion. One of the biggest things that has held the Puzzle League series back in my opinion is its wildly inconsistent history with its branding, not just with its naming, but also in its presentation. Some of the characters that have been in Puzzle League games include magical anime girls, the characters from Yoshi's Island, the characters from the Pokemon anime, the weird side game in Animal Crossing New Leaf, and random futuristic imagery. You know, if I had a nickel for every time a 90s Japanese puzzle game replaced magical anime characters with more recognizable faces in the West, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Now if they try to use these characters, I can just see all the people unironically calling Lip the girl from Smash from a mile away. Granted, thanks to her presence in Smash, maybe that small bit of familiarity could help sell anything Puzzle League related to those people. As for my ideas, I think there are a couple smaller things they could do with the series, which would be a perfect lower risk opportunity for Nintendo. One idea would be, as I said earlier, to give it the F-099 treatment, and make it into a small game for people who are subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online, giving another incentive for people to subscribe, because we know the quality of the online isn't one. Another idea I had would perhaps be a remaster of the original Puzzle League game, as was presented to the Japanese audience, with the characters from that game and all. That would also have online multiplayer that supports up to 4 players, so think kinda like if the version of Puzzle League from the Japanese exclusive Nintendo Puzzle Collection on the GameCube came to the West. You know, now that I think about it, there might be a Japanese exclusive problem with this series. A game like this would be a perfect fit for the $15 to $20 price range, and would be a low risk for both developer and consumer in my opinion. For the second category, I want to talk about a couple series that I think could see ports or remakes on the new Switch, being another opportunity to test the market for these games, where they only have to work on refining an already existing game. Firstly, I want to see the Rhythm Heaven series make a comeback. It's a series I've never gotten to experience myself unfortunately, but from what I've seen, it's always looked super fun, and the games seem to do a good job at being simple to understand, yet a fun experience that can be deceptively difficult from just watching it. In all honesty, I'm surprised we've never heard from this series during the Switch era. Even though it seems like some of the key figures involved with past games have moved on to other projects with other teams, other important people, such as Sunku, have expressed strong interest in making a new game, along with the fact that Rhythm Heaven content on the internet has seemingly become decently popular in recent years. I don't think that at the very least, a port of either Fever, Megamix, or both is unfeasible in that state. And once that team with some fresh faces gets some experience with the series under their belts, I think I'd be more than comfortable with them making an entirely new game. Come on, please give it to us. Next up, I'm not gonna add any suspense. It wouldn't really be a revival per se, but just give the people what they at least say they've been clamoring for years. Remake Mother 3 for a worldwide release. No, wait, I'm sorry! Yes, to this day, the West still does not have an official way to play this game, and considering that it's well documented that the producer of the series has said that Mother's story is complete, which seemingly leaves nothing more than this remake. However, with how highly requested this game has been, I unironically think that just remaking this game could be enough to breathe a whole lot of new life into the series, and birth a new generation of Earthbound/Mother fans, even if they likely won't have any future games to look forward to. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Pretty simple. It's long overdue, Nintendo. Please make it happen. Moving on to the final category, I'm going to talk about a couple of series that I think need new games in their series, and the silence over the past few years regarding both of them has been deafening. The first of these two that I'm talking about is the Mario and Luigi series. The M&L games may not generate as much internet discussion as, say, Paper Mario, but I think its smaller reach amongst online fandoms is made up for by having a more consistently solid series of games, as even the game that is considered the weakest in the series still seems to have its fans from my experience. The problem is that weakest entry is the last new entry we've seen from the series, and that game's release date is starting to approach the decade mark. After Paper Jam's mixed reception, Alpha Dream, the main studio behind the Mario and Luigi games, found themselves unable to put enough resources together to make games for the Switch, and so instead, as a last resort, they put out remakes of Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story on the 3DS. The problem with this was that the 3DS was a fossil and had already been left behind by most people for the Switch by the time these remakes hit, and was made worse by the fact that you could already play Inside Story on the 3DS thanks to backwards compatibility. Their most popular game became their worst selling game, and after assisting with a few more games, Alpha Dream went bankrupt. Although Nintendo could bring the series back, we haven't heard anything yet in the roughly 4.5 years since the Alpha Dream bankruptcy. And based on the fact that their two most popular games already got remakes, I feel like the only way to properly revive the series at this point is with an entirely new game. While it may not be as massive as other Mario spin-off series, it's still one that has plenty of fans who are desperate for crumbs of anything resembling a return for the series. And I hope Nintendo isn't just content with letting it die, not with a whimper like the desperate remakes we got. And lastly, I have one more series to talk about. Although this one's a bit weird, as it's an extension of an IP that is by no means in danger of falling to the wayside anytime soon, it seems. Even with the praise and success that a game like Metroid Dread has received from the gaming community, it could only hide the elephant in the room regarding the franchise over the past 7 years for so long. Yeah, Metroid Prime 4's announcement will be turning 7 years old later this year. Know how I said the announcement, because we still haven't seen any gameplay, and the last bits of info we've gotten officially were that the development of the game was being restarted 5 years ago, and a reassurance that was still being worked on 2.5 years ago. Yeah, 6.5 years, and still no trailers or gameplay footage to speak of. It seems crystal clear at this point that this game being a Switch exclusive at the very least is not in the cards, but that doesn't necessarily mean doom for Metroid Prime 4, of course. It is very concerning, though, that the series that has desperately wanted a beacon of hope to wash out the poor taste of Other M and Federation Force in its mouth for a decade now, has a game that's suffering in development hell. If the alarm bells weren't already ringing, if we go through June of this year and we still haven't heard anything, then yeah, I think we might have a 5-alarm fire of an issue on our hands. And I'll probably end up dedicating an entirely separate video to the situation if that happens. But anyways, when this game likely releases on the Switch 2, if it ever does, there's a lot of pressure for this game to live up to the hype. Not just for the series, but possibly even for its developer, Retro Studios, as well, as their last new game was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which released 10 years ago. If Prime 4 is a critical and commercial failure, it could potentially be a massive setback for what was once considered a top-tier Nintendo studio. And with that out of the way, those were 5 series I wanted to see revived on the Switch too. Again, if you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more Nintendo content like this, and I hope you have a great day.